I think one of the hardest things for people to come to terms with when they're trying to heal or when they awaken to certain truths is accepting things that were hidden for a long time. And even when you have an intuitive knowing, and likely this is more difficult for a lot of men, but for women too, it's accepting that truth, but then taking the intuitively guided action based on that intuitive truth. And I can totally relate to this. I've known since I was little that my mom was a covert malignant narcissist. I knew that her behavior towards my dad, who was not my biological father, was abusive, and that it was intentionally abusive. And throughout the years, I did ponder this from time to time, and occasionally in prayer, I would gain a deeper understanding. But it wasn't until God was ready to lead me through the full truth and wanted to place me in a space where I could receive that truth and that I could continue to move forward through it to complete my mission. Accepting and understanding curses and hexing and what that truly means, what voodoo and black magic truly means, and gaining a deeper understanding of things that I had somewhat of a surface understanding of, but really gaining a healthy respect for just, how deep it goes, how vast it is, and just how intentional and how much effort is put in really through all dark forces. A lot of times we will have recognition of unhealthy patterns, especially in the people around us, in our family, our coworkers or employees. And especially if you have a spark of divinity, you likely see it more clearly. But what many people fail to understand is that this is really just the first step, is your awareness of the unhealthy patterns, but then recognizing that you are a part of that pattern, what that really means, and how that has affected your life. Have a divine spark. Likely, you have a pretty heavy dedication to your family. You likely are a leader. You likely are, everybody's therapist. You probably have been called a people pleaser. You likely have an unhealthy attachment, whether codependent or avoidant, anxious. You likely also have some sort of neurodivergency and potentially some other personality disorders. Or at least that's what you've been programmed to believe. This takes a lot of prayer and a lot of introspection. But it also takes a deeper understanding of the Word of God. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. This was shortly after I lost my job. I worked in vet med for 15 years, like I said. Well, I worked in vet med for 25, but I lost my job that I worked at for 15 years. Level of acceptance with that, which came pretty readily for me, because I am very self-aware, and because being honest with myself, I knew that I had been conflicted and had lost a lot of passion for my work for probably about 6 months prior to me losing my job. I would have anxiety on the way to work and was having bouts of anxiety here and there. And I've really never had anxiety my entire life. Every once in a while, but for the most part, I really didn't struggle with anxiety or panic or anything like that. So the awareness that this was happening, sometimes I would even cry on the way to work, and I would pray, because I knew I was exhausted. I was so tired. And, I had worked so many years of like never even looking at the clock. I mean, I would work 80 hours a week. I mean, it was my full identity. Okay. And even when I really didn't have anything else to give, I was always able to like pull that little bit extra out and knock it out of the park. Okay. I mean, I would answer my calls in the middle of the night. I would answer emails. I would, one time I had to actually drive all the way back like 2 hours from camping because we had a discrepancy in our controlled drug count. So I had to go back to the clinic. So, I mean, I was really just always available. And that combined with managing the just general emotions and mental and emotional well-being of, 60 of the most empathic women you could ever meet in your life, it really just sped up my feeling of apathy and burnout. Now, no nurse, and certainly no vet tech, should ever feel apathy. That's dangerous. Empathy and compassion for your patients and for the work you do is a crucial piece. Unfortunately, many nurses and vet techs do go through a period of burnout or situational depression even. But it's important to recognize that, and which I did. And I came to the awareness pretty quickly after losing my job that God was in fact answering my prayers. And so it was that choice, though, in acknowledging that God had made a way for me, that God had actually answered my prayers. And to the outside world, most people, especially single moms, getting terminated from their job and, making the choice to leave their career that they had been in their whole life, that to anybody on the outside might cause, concern or whatever. I don't know. I don't really consider people's opinions very much in terms of things like that. Especially like if they're not providing for me or supporting me. Otherwise, it's nobody has lived your life besides you. One of the things that I have learned through the last 5 years is just seriously how much people consider other people's opinions. And even people that say that they don't actually do and actually need that validation. I just haven't looked at life like that. And a lot of that is due to my relationship with Jesus Christ, my relationship with God, and the choice to recognize that any situation that I am in is for my best and highest good. It's only us that resists the truth because we don't like it. It didn't come with a shiny bow. It didn't come with a bonus. And it's like, this isn't what I prayed for, and in fact you did, because God is answering the prayers within your heart. God is aligning you, or trying to align you constantly to your destiny, to your highest timeline. You don't even know what that looks like until you start walking down that path. And whatever you have in mind, God knows better than you do. So I lean not into your own understanding. Because when you're constantly trying to figure everything out, well, one, you're not in faith. Faith is not things seen. Faith is things unseen that you already know that you are loved, and God is always working things out in your favor. So if you can adjust just that one part, that helps a lot with letting go, and it helps a lot with acceptance, and it helps a lot with surrender. Now, this doesn't mean it's not difficult, that I really entered a flow. I just began to allow, and even though I was losing a lot, I had to make a tremendous amount of sacrifices. And again, to anybody on the outside looking in, I'm certain that they would have an opinion. Most people do. But I'm not most people. I'm a child of God. And nobody is equipped to know your path and to know your relationship with God like you are. Nobody. They couldn't possibly. And one of the things that God really needed for me to recognize was the patterns that I had been taking part in and participating in. And like I said in my previous video, or the one before that, recognizing where I had been giving without reciprocation, where I had been undersupported and I had been giving my energy and time to unhealthy dynamics. But one of the most eye-opening patterns that I recognized was the one that my mother was trying to play out with my daughter. And every time I had the awareness, there was a period of time that followed that awareness based on that intuitive awareness, whether it was a deeper understanding of how can I correct the imbalance with mine and my daughter's relationship? How can I create healthy boundaries here? How can I put a hedge around my family, both of my children, and gently walk everyone on the other side of that boundary that doesn't belong that deep in my energy? Mainly my mother. And this took quite a bit of time. It created quite a bit of conflict, but the major conflict was me trying to explain, close a door. As difficult as it was, I felt myself getting fuller. I literally felt all of my energy that had been stolen. Every person that was relying on me for love and nurturing and, advice and whatever it was, even with my job and everything that I was overgiving in. And as that codependency wound healed up, which because of my relationship with God, my entire life, my awakening was much more gentle. It was much more gentle. And maybe not as apparent and obvious to everybody on the outside world, because for the most part, I was awake my entire life. And I think this is also what people have missed that were closest to me, right? Because again, they have an outside perspective. And some of them had a long-standing intention that they themselves had convinced themselves was real. It's a literal delusion. So let's say when you're an infant, you get cursed. And if you have a parent that is a Freemason or an Eastern Star, you likely have a Freemason curse on you. Especially if you have the spark of divinity, or if somebody in your family identified this in you. I had to understand what that truly meant. So then I had to go down that path a little bit. So I did that, and my energy grew fuller. I also started to have a much stronger intuition. Very strong. Borderline freaked myself out a little bit. You know, this was probably my biggest disappointment about the separation with Dee, was like the safety there. You know, it definitely felt like that was the support. Because, you know, and people, because there's so many people that are misinformed and they're uneducated and they're ignorant and they don't understand and they don't take the time to understand because they come in with a preconceived notion. It really depends on where that person is at that's in your outer reality, at least for me anyways. How easy, how willing, how open they're going to be to be in my energy, or responsible enough to be in my energy. It wasn't easy though. Like it wasn't easy for me either. You know, when these things are developing, it's like, yes, I was very faithful and I went to church and I did read the Bible and I did pray and all of that, but as far as like retrieving my energy, and I didn't set out to retrieve my energy, that was the natural and organic consequence of ending out cycles and closing doors to where people were draining me and causing me to not be able to be fully in my intuition. I started to notice and be able to perceive was darker energy. Now, because of another natural gift that I was born with that I'm not going to get into just yet because I still have all these strangers and weirdos watching and stalking me, and some definite diabolical psychopath trying to be me. I've always had the ability, likely because I don't carry the spirit of judgment, and this sort of catches people off guard because most people that you meet carry the spirit of judgment. But the spirit of judgment is the log in their eye. They don't recognize, you know, the old saying, like, that which we see wrong in others, we need to see in ourselves. Well, it's just a lot like that. And they're misjudging. Their perception of reality is off because they themselves are not healed. And so once you do heal and you're not a part of those patterns anymore, and you're in the fullness of your energy, for me, because I already naturally never carried the spirit of judgment, I just treat people and meet people where they're at. And so, especially if you are kind and loving to those people, because they've likely been mishandled and misjudged their whole life. But again, that's a part of my purpose in this world. And you can't be working for God and carry the spirit of judgment. You won't be able to carry the spirit of judgment and humility together. It won't work. And this is why God puts people through ego deaths, which is actually a large reason for karma. Karma is not a punishment, it's a lesson. It is a lesson. This is I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but that's one of my major issues with witchcraft, baneful magic, and, karma transfers, destiny swapping, which is not a thing. It's not possible. It's not real. Okay. But just in general, like spell casting and love spells and all that other bullshit, the people that do that are missing valuable lessons. And then they don't have an awareness of karma. They may have been receiving karma for a long time, and it was literally just a lesson they were supposed to learn. But because they have such giant egos, and because they're constantly not taking accountability, not recognizing their role in every situation, not recognizing themselves as a part of the pattern, those patterns continue. Those cycles continue. But as that energy came back to me, and being in the world with a gift that was becoming fully developed, well, it did obviously increase my protection. It also made my journey much more difficult. And see, this is the thing too. When I hear people that claim to be prophets or seers or, spiritually gifted or intuitive, one thing that I look for is how private they actually are. They are going to carry a bit of melancholy at times, because not everything that is prophetic, and actually a lot of things that are prophetic, are sad. They're tragic. Especially when an entire group of people, for me, are intentionally taking the wrong action very easily. And this was all intentionally designed this way. God needed it to be this way. To be in the fullness of my gifting, the gifts of my spirit, for my protection. But when you have an entire group of people or multiple groups of people that they themselves are embodying dark energy, and they're carrying a shit ton of karma. So yes, it became much easier, but it also, to some degree, was bringing me a grief and sadness. But see, this is also where people get this wrong. It's not for me, it's for them. and I don't say that lightly, because I think karma, avoided karma, is dumb, for lack of a better words. Because again, it's just a lesson you're refusing to learn. But there's an attachment to that lesson most people are refusing to learn, like addictions. And God can let you go through things and will withdraw protection. If you do have spiritual gifting, you will be disarmed. So, let's say you're somebody who is, gifted in your speech, and you start using your language to manipulate, to curse, hex, to do anything negative outside of what God has called you to do. You likely are going to be affected in your throat, in your mouth, in your voice, in your teeth. And it's always likely going to be something within you or within a pattern that you're in. And see, the truth is that nobody can curse you. Only God can create curses. This is biblical. And if you ever did actually speak to somebody who truly knew the truth and was willing to tell you, they would tell you this. Most of them just aren't willing to tell you this because, they don't like to give away their magic tricks. It's the people that are within those patterns that are closest to you that are cursing and hexing you. They are exploiting your unhealthy patterns. And so in their minds, you're giving them permission to do that to you. You're leaving a door open to allow them to walk through. And coming to this awareness technically and logically helps a lot, but there's still that piece of leaning into your faith, not into your own understanding, but into your faith, and releasing fear in order to close that door. Because the truth of it is that it is the people closest to you exploiting your wounds, exploiting your trauma, creating trauma so that they can further exploit it. Which is, if you know, that's what this group of Satan worshipers are attempting to do right now. And what my mom has attempted to do my whole life, but especially the last 2 years, because she's panicking, right? They wanted to sacrifice me so they could get away with fraud, and some weirdo psychopath could continue to use my identity. But again, they glamorize this shit. They put a different spin on it, but I live in reality. And so I'm not going to do that for them. It's predatory, criminal, and abusive and traumatic behavior. And it's not okay. What is happening to me right now on the internet is a snuff film. Because there's a whole group, multiple groups of people that are watching me while I'm being driven into isolation, stalked, have no access to my finances. Anytime I get access to finances, they find a way to hack my accounts. I've never been paid from anything regarding any of my social media. I can't even interact with my following. I can't read messages. They block likes. My algorithm is not what other people see. That's how isolated they want me. Damaged my vehicle. Flattened my tires. Put sugar in my gas tank, soda or something. Mess with my fuses and my engine. Mess with my brakes twice a year. I mean, my car is immobile right now. And they know this. So that makes it very difficult for me to even generate any kind of income. And they're intercepting my data. So any text message, any email, any phone call, even my United States Postal Service, they stole my mail and interrupted my postal service. And then when I do come out, even the places that I walk, I'm constantly followed, sometimes videotaped. And the last creatures that did this said they were playing a game. Playing a game where they're essentially watching and waiting for me to die. A fake court case through the family court system. Judge Thomas O'Malley from Cuyahoga County. Because nothing else was working to psychologically and emotionally traumatize me enough, because they want to lower your vibration, so the voodoo and magic that they're sending at you, which, again, by the way, has never worked and never will. I've never been cursed, ever, my entire life. It's the delusional mind that has convinced people, specifically my mother and the other freak shows, who thought that they were going to be able to eat off my plate. We've seen this play out a lot. This is a intentional generational curse. And now my mother, Mary Grace Rollins from Strongsville, Ohio, Brochet, now she's attempting to curse my children. And now they're attempting to sacrifice my son, William Edelberg, his dad, Nick Edelberg, and his stepmom, Shelby Edelberg, who are Satan worshipers, who have had people around them dropping. Because why? Because when you send suicide spells at someone, when you intentionally target their heart so they have a heart attack, and that can't hit them because they're anointed, because they're protected, because you have no spiritual lift, because you've been disarmed. And you think you're playing a game? No, you're not playing a game. You're playing with people's lives. Every single day that this continues, I am in such a state of disgust. It is unlike anything that you could really even articulate. It's so evil. It's so evil and it's so abusive. And what's messed up is that while they're watching and stalking you, whatever you do, they make about them. When I have no connection to these people, the only connection that they perceive is the one in their minds. The one that they created when they intentionally took action, thinking they would be able to take me out with black magic and voodoo. That was dumb. That was stupid. But that was their choice. And then, instead of telling the truth, apologizing and seeking redemption, they decide to take it a step further, to hide their lies, which means, again, not accepting the karma, because that's the lesson. The lesson is to take accountability and tell the truth so you can heal and move on. Like, it's absolutely insane how much pain these people want in their lives, how much judgment of God they want, how they're willing to risk daily their own friends and family. Because when that energy returns, when that energy is on top of you and you're walking around with that and you're still trying to do it, you don't know when that's going to hit. And when it hits, it's too late. And if you're thinking anything other than what I'm telling you right now, then you still have ego. And again, that's your problem, not mine. You don't get to steal my money. You don't get to steal my brand. You don't get to steal my identity. You don't get to steal my platforms and exploit them. You damn sure don't get to kidnap my child. And when you have no just cause for the fact that you are keeping an 11-year-old little boy from his mom, not even allowing him to communicate, when you have no evidence or just cause for doing that, that is abuse. That is intentionally inflicting trauma on a child. And yes, it is kidnapping. I don't give a shit if you wear a robe. You should have thought of doing your actual job if you didn't want the truth spoken on. I will continue to speak on it until my child is returned to me, or until some kind, loving child of God, actual good person, not a Satan worshiper, screen records this. And they use whatever they have to take to the justice system, to take to Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court and ask questions, or until the FBI does their job, or until the institution of people who now are taking an unbiased look at things does their job. But no matter what, you're not taking anything from me. Damn sure not either of my kids. And the damages are growing by the day. No fucking reason other than your own wounds, your own inability to take accountability. Had I done anything to any of these people, had I been in connection with any of them, then I would be getting karma back and forth, you see. But that's not the case. I had already gone through a transformational healing period, was all the way in my lane, just living in my little modest condo. And because Mary Grace Rollins from Strongsville, Ohio, had already been committing fraud and wanted to continue to get away with that, and wanted to continue to conceal her involvement in things like the Nixium sex cult, predatory practices, adulterous affairs, like the one where she conceived me, and then the other sacrifices and the blood money that all these people live off of. They wanted to be able to conceal that. I don't give a shit. I don't. I have no idea what you're expecting to accomplish here. None. And that makes sense. Why? Because I'm not in a pattern with any of you. I haven't been. You can't even read my energy because you're not on my frequency. And anybody who is telling you they can read my energy is a liar. I wouldn't even waste my time asking for advice about me because none of you know me and none of you are on my frequency. I outrank every last one of you spiritually. Opportunity to have a teacher, an ascended master, supreme high priestess, a white buffalo to your entire community. You made the choice to not only try to sacrifice me, but to steal from me and then come for my children. And you're still doing it. You are allowing, and every person that is seeing this should know, what you are taking part in is a snuff film that I am demanding come to an end. How the FBI is going to be able to explain away not protecting me, not protecting my resources, not filling me in, because it's likely there is an investigation, and I've tried to be very patient and very compassionate. They likely have multiple life insurance policies, who knows? Lord knows they're all living off of my money, and they know I know that. I want you to consider that an entire group of rodents behind the scenes here on these social platforms at PayPal and Cash App, because they also have not responded to communication. The fake flexing piece of shit, fake spiritualists, and the people that belong to 3-letter agencies that are like actively choosing to ignore the fact that a Christian minister, a single mom, is being abused, literally tortured, stalked, and harassed daily, and had her resources taken from her for no reason. None. Other than the sick, disgusting, nasty, pathetic, and disgusting egos of very cowardly men. Very cowardly. It does not take a strategy to tell the truth. It damn sure don't take a strategy to release my money. To put some random hooker in a straitjacket and take the technology away. It doesn't take a strategy to not send notifications to my phone pretending to be and setting them up like they look like local numbers or they look like a DoorDash notification, but really they're a blockchain NFT that you're using to gain access and potentially ownership over my content. And when I have that traced back to the Dallas County Sheriff, that looks really strange. None of this shit should still be happening. But mainly, my son, my 11-year-old little boy, the only bit of courage in this entire situation from anything. Like, this kid at 11 is behaving more of a man than any of the men in this situation. It's truly, absolutely appalling and disgusting. It isn't for me to die. Then what is your end goal? What is your end goal here? If it's not for me to die. I mean, you're withholding my money. You intercept my data. You will not allow me to have access to the platforms that I created. You stole my business. You're letting some stupid ass hooker walk around in my identity. You're living off of my property and my money. I have no connection to any of these people. I was never in a contract, a relationship, a marriage, a partnership of any sort with any of these people. None. If they tell you otherwise, it's a lie. They could very easily call me on the phone if it wasn't a lie, but they can't. Until people do their job, this is going to continue happening. I'm never going to take myself out. So if that's what you're waiting on, just know that's never going to happen. I don't allow other people to tell me who I am, to make me feel insecure. I don't let other people do that to me. When I say that other people's opinions are none of my business, unlike Derek, I actually mean it. None of this is productive, is healthy. None of it. I don't give a shit what your opinion of me is. We were never in a competition. If you want to compare yourself to me, that's your problem. If you don't like what I say, stop looking. Nobody appointed you God, judge, or jury of anything. I have no idea where you got the fucking audacity to think so. This is way beyond gang stalking. This is way beyond shadow banning or doxing. This is way beyond hacking. This is a freaking snuff film taking place across multiple platforms. It's abuse. It's vile, disgusting, traumatic abuse. How this is happening, I have no idea. But if anybody has any access to anybody in the justice system that isn't a corrupt piece of shit, if you could have them come find me, they know where I'm at. Nobody in their mind could believe that they literally could take from another person without consequence. It would be one thing if I was in a relationship, if you were my manager, if we built a business together, a brand together, if you were supporting me or providing for me. That would be one thing. If I was ever a side piece or a third party, which I never was, nor would I ever be. I'm not an insecure, psychopathic pick-me who sacrifices babies and animals and other people for money. I'm not a sick, twisted bitch who goes behind the scenes of people's lives and creates destruction, causes them to lose their job, causes them to be incarcerated, causes them to lose things around them so that you can show up like some kind of hero, like my mother, are willing to sacrifice their own children. If you think that your pet that died all of a sudden, started having seizures randomly, wasn't poisoned, if you actually don't think that someone who participates in black magic for money wouldn't harm you too, the thing is they have to have a connection to you. The burden that you are feeling, the burden of all of your failures, trying to please everyone, trying to show up like a hero for everyone, thinking that you're breaking generational curses for them. No, you're breaking generational curses for God. And it is the people closest to you that are creating those curses. That's the truth of it. It's a hard thing to swallow, but it could save your life accepting it. God is not going to allow the kingdom of darkness to grow in any kind of power right now. If you are not listening to your intuition and you are noticing that things are off, which obviously for all of you things are off, because this is completely psychotic behavior. All of this. There is no discussion. There's nothing to debate or go back and forth about. There's no plans. There's no nothing. There's you people blocking me, stealing from me, and committing fraud and victimizing me and my child. In 44 years, at least the last 5, y'all, it would take me probably, I don't even know how many videos to explain to you just how much Nick, Shelby Edelberg, and my mother, Mary Grace Rollins, along with other members of my family, I don't want to place blame, potentially Derek Stalin, if that's his real name from Texas, I don't know if that's even his real name, and any of the psychopaths around him. I have no idea who plays what role. I just know that none of you have any connection to me. We were never in a legal binding agreement. You don't know anything about my life. My own mother had a boundary laid down 3 years ago because of what she's doing right now and will continue to do until she is held accountable for her crimes. And it's going to happen. You're literally stacking karma on karma on karma daily. This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life, and I haven't even seen it. Nothing you're doing is making me grow in compassion for any of you, though. That's what I truly don't understand. Like, what is the goal here? I'm never going to take myself out. I wouldn't even ever consider it. I've never considered it in my fucking life. You're not going to affect my health. I'm protected by God and a lot of ancestors and archangels. Obviously, you know this. Anything you even attempt to do is going to happen unto you tenfold. And it's going to get increasingly worse. Why are you doing that to yourself? Whatever you're hoping to gain here, you can't take with you when you're in the ground. We all come in with the same thing and leave with the same thing. Our spirit. It is likely that y'all have very unhealthy attachments to each other, and you are trying to exhibit control over each other. Likely the sick, twisted bitch who is still wearing my identity, likely trying to shame, blame, drag it out, probably like throwing themselves to the floor, making themselves sick. Because again, remember, these people create this shit. They're not crazy. They're not sick. These are people that will give themselves miscarriages. I shit you not, they will. If you had any idea the lengths that the people around me have gone to, you would understand this. Again, they were willing to sacrifice their own family member. These people killed my dog. They're doing voodoo and feeding off of the fear and trauma of an 11-year-old little boy right now. Nick and disgusting Shelby Edelberg from Pemberton, Ohio. That is exactly what they're doing. And Judge Thomas O'Malley from Cuyahoga County enabled and allowed it. How is this going on every single day? My shock has nothing to do with me. I will always be okay. I have a mission and a purpose and no karma and a destiny that doesn't have a thing to do with any of you.